Welcome to Vpod.ai. I'm your host, Mike, and joining me today is our expert, Susan. You can sponsor this podcast for just $25. Your message will be featured across major platforms like Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and more. If you're interested, visit Vpod.ai to get started today.
Hi, everyone. It's really great to be here.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you. So I want you, the listener, to just imagine waking up, swinging your legs out of bed, and finding that pulling a single breath of air into your lungs feels like, well, breathing through a tiny crushed straw.
It's a terrifying feeling.
Right, and for 25 million Americans living with asthma, taking a breath just isn't this passive background activity. It is a conscious and honestly sometimes terrifying effort.
Exactly. And if you're managing asthma yourself or closely supporting someone who is, you already know that heavyweight that sits on your chest during an attack.
Yeah, you definitely don't need us to tell you that pollen and pet dander are bad news. We all know that. What we want to do today is look past the obvious.
Right. We're tearing down the walls of the environments you spend the most time in.
Exactly. We're looking at the invisible, often misunderstood machinery of an asthma attack. We're basically mapping out the hidden triggers lurking in your home, your diet, and surprisingly, even your own mind.
And we're going to break those down into two distinct battlefields, which are allergic reactions and direct irritants.
Because understanding the biological difference between those two categories is, it's the key to entirely changing how you manage your daily life.
It really is. We have this tendency to just lump all respiratory distress into one big bucket.
Right. Asthma is just asthma, right?
That's what people think. But the physiological mechanics of an airway swelling up because, say, your immune system is malfunctioning, well, that's completely different from an airway swelling up because it's being chemically burned or physically shocked.
Okay, wow. So once you know which mechanism is at play, your whole strategy for shutting it down completely changes.
100%.
So let's start with that first battlefield allergic asthma. We know the usual suspects: tree pollen in the spring, grass in the summer, mold, spores in humid climates.
Yeah, the classics.
Right. But I want to know what is actually happening inside the body. To me, it feels like having an incredibly overzealous security guard working inside your lungs.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, like someone burns a piece of toast in the break room.
Yeah.
And the guard just panics, pulls the emergency fire alarm, deploys the sprinklers, and locks down the whole building.
That is pretty much exactly what's happening.
But why? Why do seemingly harmless things like a microscopic protein from a dust mite cause such a violent, disproportionate physical reaction?
Well, your security guard analogy captures the mechanism perfectly, because in allergic asthma, the root of the problem isn't actually the lungs at all.
Wait, it's not.
Nope, it's the immune system. So your body produces a specific type of antibody called immunoglobulin E, or IgE for short.
Okay, IgE. Got it.
Right. Now, in a healthy system, IgE exists to hunt down and destroy dangerous parasites. But in someone with allergic asthma, there's this fundamental evolutionary misfire.
A misfire. So it's identifying the wrong target.
Exactly. The immune system tags harmless proteins like, say, the protein in cat saliva or the waste products of a dust mite as deadly parasitic invaders.
Oh, wow. So when you breathe in dust mite allergens from your carpet or your mattress, your body literally thinks it's under a parasitic attack.
It genuinely does. And the moment those aerosolized proteins bypass your upper respiratory defenses and hit the delicate lining of your lower airways, the immune system basically detonates.
Detonates. That sounds intense.
It is. It signals mast cells in your lungs to burst open, and they just flood the tissue with inflammatory chemicals like histamine.
Histamine. Like what you take antihistamines for.
Precisely. And those chemicals act instantly. They command the smooth muscles wrapping around your airways to aggressively contract, and they force the tissue to hypersecrete this thick mucus to trap the so-called invader.
So the airway isn't just narrowed, it's actively squeezed shut and clogged up with fluid.
Yes, which explains the wheezing.
Right, because you're trying to force air through a pipe that is literally swelling shut from the inside.
And filling with fluid at the same time.
That is wild. And it's crazy to think this whole cascade is triggered by the hidden ecosystem of our homes. Yeah. We aren't just talking about a stray cat hair here.
No, not at all.
We're talking about microscopic dust mites thriving in our bedding, or the incredibly potent proteins and cockroach droppings that people don't even realize are circulating in their indoor air.
Yeah, the sheer volume of biological particulate matter in a standard home is just staggering.
Which is why vacuuming isn't just about being neat, right?
Exactly. Basic environmental management isn't just about keeping a tidy house. It is a targeted medical intervention.
Huh. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, like you use a high-efficiency particulate air purifier not just to remove dust, but to literally pull the microscopic triggers out of your breathing zone. And you use specialized mattress covers to starve the environment of the proteins your immune system is actively hunting for.
Okay, so if inhaling a microscopic protein causes the immune system to detonate in the lungs, what happens when the immune system gets tripped up by something we swallow?
Ah, the dietary connection.
Yeah, because we saw a massive dietary connection to asthma, which honestly seems like a geographical paradox to me.
How so?
Well, digestion happens in the stomach and intestines, right?
Yeah.
But asthma happens up in the lungs. How on earth does eating dried fruit or having a glass of wine end up tightening your chest?
I know, it seems totally disconnected until you view the body as a single, continuous, highly vascularized system.
Okay, connected by the blood.
Right. When you consume a food, you're allergic to common culprits being wheat, dairy, tree nuts, or gluten. Your gut's immune system detects the threat and mounts a defense.
Right, stomach ache, bloating, all that.
Sure, but that localized inflammation doesn't just stay in the digestive tract. The immune cells release inflammatory cytokines directly into your bloodstream.
And those inflammatory signals act like a systemic alarm, just traveling everywhere.
Precisely. They circulate systemically. Now, for someone with allergic asthma, the airways are the body's absolute weak point. They're hyper-reactive.
So they're already on edge.
Very much so. So when those inflammatory cytokines arrive at the blood vessels lining the lungs respond by doing what they are primed to do under any threat.
Let me guess. The smooth muscles contract and the tissue swells up.
You got it. It's a systemic chain reaction.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I do want to push back on the wine and dried fruit example for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Because those aren't typical food allergies. If I'm not allergic to grapes, why would wine cause my airways to lock up?
That's because of what is added to them. We have to look really closely at food preservatives.
Like artificial ingredients.
Specifically nitrites and sulfites. These are incredibly common in processed meats, dried apricots, and, wine. They aren't triggering a traditional IgE immune response like we talked about before. Instead, as they're broken down in the stomach, they actually release sulfur dioxide gas.
Wait, hold on. Gas is transferring from the digestive breakdown process through the blood back into the lungs to be exhaled and causing inflammation on the way out.
Yes. It is a well-documented physiological pathway.
That is mind-blowing.
It really is. For a highly sensitive asthmatic, that gas gets absorbed into the bloodstream, travels to the lungs, and directly irritates the airway nerve endings.
Man, that highlights why asthma is so notoriously difficult to manage without data.
Exactly. A person might have a glass of wine with dinner, experience chest tightness an hour later, and assume it was just the neighbor's cat or some pollen blowing through the window.
Which means keeping a detailed, granular food diary is pretty much non-negotiable.
Oh, absolutely. You have to track exactly what you consumed and correlate it with when your peak flow drops or when the wheezing starts.
Because spotting those invisible correlations is the only way to solve the puzzle, right?
Yeah. You eliminate the preservative or the specific food group, and suddenly those mysterious evening asthma attacks just vanish.
Okay, so we've established the mechanics of the allergic side.
Mm-hmm.
The immune system misfiring over pollen, dust, and food. Let's pivot to the second battlefield, the direct assault.
The direct irritants, yes.
Because you mentioned earlier that some triggers bypass the immune system entirely.
They do. In this category, there's no allergic misidentification happening. There's no histamine cascade.
So it's not the body attacking itself.
No. An irritant is something that physically and mechanically inflames the lung tissue from the outside.
And one of the most brutal irritants isn't even a physical substance, is it? It's a drop in temperature.
Oh, cold air is a huge one.
Yeah. You step out of your front door on a freezing winter morning, you take that first sharp breath, and it feels like your lungs simply lock into place.
Right.
It doesn't feel like a slow allergic buildup. It genuinely feels like a physical shock to the nervous system.
Because it is a profound physical shock. The human respiratory system is designed to condition the air you breathe.
Condition it how?
Well, by the time air reaches your deep lung tissue, it needs to be warmed to exactly 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and it needs to be at a 100% humidity.
Wow. So when you flood the system with air that is, say, 20 degrees and bone dry,
You completely overwhelm the system's ability to condition that air.
and what does that do to the lungs?
The cold, dry air rapidly evaporates the very thin layer of fluid that coats your airways. And when that fluid evaporates, the salt concentration in the remaining liquid just spikes.
Oh, like evaporating salt water.
Exactly. That sudden change in osmolarity physically damages the epithelial cells lining the lungs.
Which triggers the attack.
Right, it triggers an immediate violent reflex in the airway muscles to constrict, just in a desperate attempt to protect the deeper tissues.
Okay, that perfectly explains why the common advice, wrapping a thick scarf completely over your nose and mouth before stepping into the cold, is so effective.
Yes, it's not just about keeping your face warm. It's functional.
Exactly. The scarf acts as a functional pre-warming chamber. As you exhale, your breath warms and humidifies the fabric fibers.
Oh, I see.
So when you inhale the freezing outdoor air, it pulls through that matrix of warm, moist fabric, taking the harsh, dry edge off before it ever hits your windpipe.
It fundamentally alters the physics of the air entering your body.
Exactly.
Okay, so cold air is a mechanical shock. But let's talk about chemical shocks. I mean, smoke is obvious. Wildfires and cigarettes are massive hazards.
Obviously, yes.
But what really strikes me is the chemical environment we intentionally create inside our own homes.
Oh, this is a big one.
Right. We have completely normalized heavily scented spaces. We buy plug-in air fresheners, we burn vanilla-scented candles, we clean our counters with heavily fragranced sprays.
And we think we're doing a good thing.
Yeah. The irony is we buy these things to make our homes feel clean or cozy, but we are actively gassing our own respiratory systems.
It's so true. And this requires a major shift in how we perceive the modern consumer world.
Yeah. Well, mentally, we categorize smells into good and bad, right? We cognitively know a burning cigarette is bad, but our brain tells us a lavender linen spray is good.
Right, because it smells nice.
But your lungs, however, do not have a sense of smell.
They don't care that the candle costs $40 and smells like an autumn harvest.
To your airway tissue, there is zero difference. The lungs only detect particulate matter and volatile organic compounds, or VOCs.
VOCs.
When you burn a scented candle or spray an air freshener, you are basically atomizing complex synthetic chemicals into the air.
And inhaling them.
Yeah. When those VOCs enter the respiratory tract, they act like microscopic sandpaper against the delicate tissues.
Ouch.
It's physical abrasion. The cells become inflamed purely because foreign chemicals are assaulting them.
But wait, how realistic is it to actually avoid this? I get choosing fragrance-free laundry detergent for my own house, but every public restroom, office building lobby, and Uber is absolutely loaded with synthetic air fresheners.
It's everywhere.
How do you navigate a world that is fundamentally hostile to your lungs?
Well, you can't control the public sphere, which is exactly why managing your personal environment is so critical. The concept is called total trigger load.
Total trigger load. Explain that.
Think of your airways like a bucket. If your bucket is already half full of inflammation from the scented candles in your own living room, stepping into a heavily fragranced Uber will cause the bucket to overflow.
And that overflow is a full-blown asthma attack.
Exactly. But if you keep your home environment completely neutral and fragrance-free, your bucket is empty. Your lungs have the baseline resilience to handle the temporary exposure in the Uber without crossing the threshold into an attack.
That makes perfect sense. You control the variables you own to build a buffer for the ones you don't.
Exactly.
So we've covered the external physical environments, the temperature drops, and the chemical aerosols, but let's move to the internal storms.
Some internal triggers, right?
Things originating entirely inside our own bodies that we can't just filter out with an air purifier.
And honestly, the internal triggers are frequently the most severe.
Really? Why is that?
Primarily because they attack the fundamental structure of the airways. The biggest factors here are respiratory illnesses and our own psychological state.
Okay, let's look at the viral side first.
Yeah.
Colds, the flu, RSV. For a person with healthy lungs, a mild rhinovirus just means a runny nose and maybe a lingering cough. You take some vitamin C and move on.
Right?
But for someone with asthma, it seems like a common cold is a fast track to a medical emergency.
It is, because a virus fundamentally changes the architecture of the lung.
How does it do that?
When a virus like RSV or the flu infects the respiratory tract, it attacks the epithelial layer. That's the protective skin lining the inside of your airways.
Okay.
As the immune system fights the virus, that protective layer is literally sloughed off.
Leaving the underlying tissue completely exposed.
Exposed and totally raw. The microscopic nerve endings in the airway wall are suddenly bare. So things that normally wouldn't bother you, like a slight change in humidity or a minor amount of dust, now hit those raw nerves directly.
Triggering massive bronchospasms.
Yes. This is why staying up to date on vaccines for flu, COVID, and RSV isn't just about avoiding a fever. For an asthmatic, it is critical structural protection for the lungs.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Now, let's unpack the psychological trigger, because the connection between the mind and the lungs is profound.
It really is.
The idea that a stressful day at work can physically clamp your airways shut feels almost unbelievable. Yet stress and anxiety are listed as major primary asthma triggers.
It really showcases the incredible power of the autonomic nervous system. Stress doesn't just exist as an abstract feeling in your brain. It forces an immediate cascade of physiological changes. When you experience anxiety, your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, kicks into overdrive.
And how does that affect breathing?
Well, one of the very first physical manifestations of anxiety is a change in respiratory rate.
We start hyperventilating, breathing fast and shallow.
We do. And that rapid breathing loops right back to the mechanics we discussed with cold air.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Rapid, shallow breathing forces excessive amounts of air through the windpipe, drying out the airway surface liquid.
Oh, just like the cold winter air.
Exactly. That drying effect changes the osmolarity of the tissue, triggering the mast cells to release histamine, and suddenly the airway constricts.
Wow.
Furthermore, anxiety lowers the carbon dioxide levels in your blood, a state called hypocapnia, which paradoxically causes the smooth muscles in the airways to tighten even further.
It's like anxiety forces the body's engine to rev way too high, and that constant rapid idling physically overheats the respiratory system until it just seizes up.
So that is a brilliant way to put it. It is a purely mechanical consequence of a psychological state.
Which totally reframes how we view mental health interventions in chronic illness.
It has to. We tend to view things like meditation, deep breathing exercises, or yoga as soft, trendy self-care.
But if anxiety physically alters blood chemistry and tissue hydration, then relaxation is actual medical maintenance.
Exactly. When you engage in vagus nerve stimulation through slow, controlled, diaphragmatic breathing, you are actively shifting your body out of the sympathetic nervous system and into the parasympathetic rest and digest state.
You're forcing the system to calm down.
You are changing the physical tone of the smooth muscles around your bronchioles. You are essentially commanding the airways to relax.
So we've mapped out this massive, complex landscape today. We have the immune system hunting down dust mites and food preservatives. We have the physical shocks of cold air and synthetic candle chemicals.
Right.
And we have the internal destruction caused by viruses and hyperventilation. For you listening right now, it can feel like you're walking through a daily minefield just trying to breathe.
It can be incredibly overwhelming.
So how do you shift from constantly playing defense to actually taking control?
Well, the transition from defense to offense relies entirely on anticipation.
Anticipation.
Knowing your specific triggers is useless if you only use that information to explain an attack after it already happens.
That makes sense.
The goal of a proactive playbook is intervening before the physiological cascade ever begins.
And I love the specific approach we discussed earlier, the athlete mentality.
Oh, it's the best example. Look at high-level asthmatic athletes, like Olympic runners or professional hockey players.
Right.
They know that the combination of cold air and intense cardiovascular exertion is a guaranteed trigger.
So what do?
They do not step onto the ice, push themselves until their chest is burning and they can't breathe, and then frantically reach for a rescue inhaler to undo the damage.
They medicate proactively? They take the inhaler before they ever lace up their skates.
Exactly. They pre-treat the airway. By using a bronchodilator prior to exposure, they chemically lock the smooth muscles in an open, relaxed state.
So when the cold air hits, the muscles are already blocked from contracting.
Yes. They prevent the fire rather than trying to extinguish it. This proactive mindset is the absolute gold standard for daily asthma management.
So instead of waiting for the house to catch fire, you wet the whole structure down first.
That's the idea.
How does a non-athlete apply that in their day-to-day life?
It means making data-driven decisions every single morning. It means checking the local air quality index and specific pollen counts before you leave the house.
So looking ahead.
Right. If you know the birch pollen is peaking, you might take an antihistamine Or use your preventative controller inhaler exactly as prescribed, even if you feel perfectly fine in that moment.
Because you know the trigger is out there.
Exactly. It means
Yeah.
if you know a massive cold front is moving in, you already have your scarf packed.
Right.
It requires working with a pulmonologist to fine-tune a daily inhaled corticosteroid that keeps the baseline inflammation so low that the everyday triggers simply bounce off.
You are dictating the terms of engagement with your environment. Because if you wait until you're wheezing, the inflammatory cascade has already taken hold.
The fluid is already in the lungs.
Outsmarting the trigger entirely is the only way to genuinely breathe easier.
It requires vigilance, definitely, but the return on that investment is reclaiming your quality of life. You stop reacting to the world and start navigating it on your own terms.
We have covered incredible ground today, moving from the microscopic proteins in our carpets to the complex neurological pathways of our own stress responses.
We really have.
And as we wrap up, there is a profound philosophical shift embedded in all of this medical science that I want you, the listener, to carry with you today.
I think this is my favorite takeaway.
It's powerful. We are so conditioned to view our bodies as these isolated vessels, walking around with a hard boundary between us and the outside world.
Right, like we're closed off.
But conditions like asthma vividly prove that no such boundary exists. We are intimately, physically porous to absolutely everything around us.
There really are.
From the microscopic level of humidity in the air you are inhaling right now, to the unseen chemical compounds off-gassing from the products on your counter, your body is constantly reading, absorbing, and reacting to its environment.
Breathing isn't just taking in oxygen.
No, it is a continuous, invisible dialogue with the modern world.
It certainly makes you pause and evaluate your daily surroundings with a much sharper, more critical eye.
It does. It fundamentally breaks down the illusion of separation. And it leaves you wondering what other invisible dialogues is your body having with the modern world that you simply haven't noticed yet.
That's a great question to leave on.
Thank you for joining us for this conversation. Remember, taking control of your health requires staying curious, tracking the invisible patterns in your life, and always asking the deeper questions. Until next time.